If there was an award for the best farmer's tan, she'd be sure to win it. Pam Jahnke and the Farm Report.
We're rolling towards 6 o'clock, and it's time for our Ag Issues Update, brought to you in part by Badgerland Financial, the Wisconsin Farmers Union, and, of course, also by the friends at Family Dairies USA. Interesting topic for discussion today, folks, and one that's gaining momentum in Washington, D.C. Have you stopped and thought about where you're going to get your hired labor from, be it on the dairy farm, be it your vegetable crops, whatever it may be? In Wisconsin, we have got a lot of agriculture that's dependent on people that were not born in Wisconsin. And I'm not talking about importing Minnesotans either. Craig Regelbrugge is along with us today. A new group has been formed called Save America's Food and Economy, and it's all surrounding this very issue. Craig, thanks for joining us. Tell us a little bit about Save America's Food and Economy. When did the group get started and why?
Well, the group got started, Pam, and thanks for the chance to be with you, got started just a couple of months ago, and the basic reason is I think more and more people involved in producing our food in this country and in those sectors that need labor, you named some of them, dairy and fruits and vegetables and so forth. There's growing concern that most Americans really don't have a good understanding of what it takes to produce their food and get it on the shelves. And there are proposals being considered in Congress, which we'll talk about a bit more in a moment, that are being put out there, immigration proposals, enforcement proposals, in the name of creating jobs that would actually destroy jobs and destroy the farm economy in a lot of areas, including in Wisconsin. So this group formed to start a campaign called Save America's Food and Economy, with the goal of, frankly, educating policymakers and the public about the choices that we need to make if we want to continue to produce a safe and abundant and affordable food supply here in the U.S.
How is the message being received? How is membership in the group coming along, Craig?
Well, we have an agricultural coalition that's been working for years on this issue, and so we have several hundred different groups around the country that are part of that, and that's really sort of the grassroots and lobbying thing. The SAFE campaign is really intended to do some things differently, and it's for example, it's doing a lot with social media, Facebook and Twitter and so forth, and tapping into and reaching a younger and more tech-savvy audience that gets their information and process and shares information in different ways than old-timers like myself. And so a lot of the activity in the campaign is trying to get to those folks because, let's face it, they're the ones who are the furthest removed from the farm and know less about what it takes to get food on the table.
And making sure that we're, I won't say attacking, but kind of that is the attitude that we are addressing this issue of where our labor comes from is getting to be more critical. Can you give us just a quick snippet on why we want to talk about this now, Craig?
Well, the reality on the ground is that roughly 70%, we think, of the hired farm labor lacks proper work authorization. As you say, they were born elsewhere, not Minnesota. They were born south of the border someplace for the most part. And they're here, they're working, they have a strong work ethic, they're contributing greatly to our agricultural ecosystem, if you will, but they don't have good papers. They have papers that look good, but they're not good. The reality of needing foreign-born labor on our farms goes all the way back to World War II, and it's only accelerated as Americans have gotten older, better educated, they've moved off the farm. A lot of farm family kids choose not to stay in farming, and that's why we need this labor here. And without this talent, without this resource, we're going to see ourselves exporting huge chunks of our agriculture to places as diverse as Mexico and China.
Craig Regelbrugge, along with us today, is the Executive Director of SAFE, Save America's Food and Economy. And what we're talking about here is figuring out a way to allow for agriculture in any manufacturing area, any segment that depends on foreign-born labor to a large extent, to be here some way. And right now there's a lot of pending legislation that's being discussed in Washington, D.C. Craig, we're going to take a quick break. Coming up in a moment, we'll talk about a Wisconsin Wall Street Journal article that was out this week addressing the issue and find out what's developing and how quickly on Capitol Hill related to legislation. This Ag Issues Forum brought to you in part by Dairy Farmers for Dairy Farmers, Family Dairies USA. Find out the benefits of being their member, fdusa.org. And by Badgerland Financial. They're helping people and businesses in rural Wisconsin realize their dreams. Badgerland Financial, cultivating rural life. Wisconsin Farmers Union bringing you this update. They are the reason voice for family farms since 1930. Online, wisconsinfarmersunion.com. regelbrugge.com. If you are a dairy farm, if you are a farm manager, somebody that depends on labor, you know, trying to find qualified people that will take on the tasks you've got in Wisconsin is challenging. Joining us today, Craig Regelbrugge, who is along with us from SAFE, Save America's Food and Economies, their executive director. Before the break, we talked about how this issue of where we're going to get our qualified workforce is coming from. It's nationwide. It's not just agriculture. And Craig, now you say Congress is ready to address our foreign-born workforce, but not necessarily in the way that agriculture might like.
Yeah, that's correct. In the House of Representatives, they've begun debating a bill called H.R. 2164, or the Legal Workforce Act. And what that act would do is make use of the federal E-Verify program, where you check against various federal databases the identity and work authorization status for an applicant, would require that every U.S. employer, every farmer use that system within 3 years. And you know, given the facts on the ground, given what we know about the demographics of the ag workforce, and given that we know there is not an adequate homegrown workforce to take the place of that workforce, we know E-Verify would exclude and render unemployable most of that workforce. So, you know, this thing is being pushed forward. This bill is being pushed forward with the argument being that it will create U.S. jobs. And in agriculture, the exact opposite is true, because if we lose the hired labor force that's doing a lot of the production work, much of which is seasonal and some of which is even migrant, and we can't replace it, we will be exporting these industries. And when we export these industries, a lot of off-farm jobs that are farm-dependent are going to go to China or go to India or go to Mexico along with the production itself.
This has got to be a galvanizing issue in Washington, D.C., as it is right here in the state.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think what's changed here, for many years, this immigration issue, you know, we've come close to having some broad-based solutions that are more balanced back in 2006 and 2007. But given the recession, you know, the environment has just turned much uglier, and there are folks out there trying to pit people against people. And so I think what's happening is a lot of farmers who have been apathetic, and CEOs of farming companies, family-owned, you know, so much of this production is family-based business. These folks are waking up, and they're looking at each other, and they're saying, wow, this Congress just might be crazy enough to do E-Verify without a farm labor solution. And so people are mobilizing, people are scared, and they're starting to get active, and that's what the SAFE campaign is all about.
Is there a more moderate voice, a more moderate opportunity out there right now, Craig, that considers the high need that agriculture's got?
I think we're making progress. Even in the House of Representatives, I think we're making progress among a lot of Republicans who have some significant labor-intensive farming in their backyards, in their districts. We're starting to hear more and more members say, you know, I really believe we should be doing E-Verify, we should be making it mandatory, but we've got to have a solution that actually fixes ag's problem. I mean, I think if you look at Wisconsin, there are places we've had very positive conversations over the years with Paul Ryan. We've had very positive. I mean, Reed Ribble has a huge dairy district; he knows it, and so we're reaching out to these folks and educating. And I'm increasingly optimistic that people are starting to grasp the significance. Now, this is not a Congress that's really producing a lot of bipartisan legislation, but what we ultimately need to do here is create a program that allows for people to come in a safe and orderly way in the future to fill jobs that go unfilled by Americans. And we need a way for experienced workers who are otherwise obeying the law to be able to get some kind of an agricultural worker visa that enables them to keep contributing.
Obviously, this is a huge topic, Craig. What can people do if they want to find out more about SAFE and maybe if they want to become involved as a member?
Yeah, I think to get involved in SAFE, the website is saveamericasfood.org. No apostrophes or punctuation, and it just saveamericasfood, all one word, .org. And they can go there, and there are ways to get active through that site. And I think that's the primary thing that they can do. And then the other thing that folks should do who are in agriculture in the state, they should encourage their associations, their organizations, if they're not already, to become active in our coalition, which is called the Agriculture Coalition for Immigration Reform. And so, you know, those are the two ways that folks can get plugged in and help. And this is defense now. We're fighting for our lives, and so it's an important time for everybody in agriculture to be pulling together.
Well, I'm glad that you and I had a chance to cross paths here, Craig, and I hope that you'll feel free to keep us up to speed on developments, both positive and negative, as we roll forward, all right?
Great. Thank you, and thanks for the great work you do.
No problem. Craig Regelbrugge, who is the Executive Director of SAFE, Save America's Food and Economy. Now, remember, we'll be putting this audio up on my website if you want to listen to a podcast later. And, as he said, the website to follow along and learn more, saveamericasfood.org. Saveamericasfood.org. And believe me, legislation is pressing right now. That's all the time that we've got on our Ag Issues Update, brought to you in part by the Wisconsin Farmers Union, Badgerland Financial, and Family Dairies USA.
This is the Farm Report with Pam Jahnke.